Okay, let's dive in. This week, a pretty major event happening right here in the U.S.
Yeah, protests in Los Angeles.
Exactly. And it's really grabbing headlines across East and Southeast Asia. So we're taking a deep dive into the sources you've shared,
Hmm.
see how this is all being viewed over there alongside, other key news.
That's the plan. We've got reports from agencies covering, well, the whole region, really. Japan, Korea, China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Southeast Asia.
Right.
And the idea is just to pull out the important bit, see how these global events connect. They really do, even when they seem far apart.
So let's start right there at the flashpoint. Los Angeles. What are the sources telling us is actually happening?
Well, the reports are focusing heavily on the U.S. president's response.
The troop deployment.
Yeah, detailing his order to send in active duty Marines, plus more National Guard troops.
And the context given is these protests related to immigration arrests.
That's right. And the sources, they make sure to note the president's strong language, that protesters would be hit harder.
And it's interesting, the sources also seem to highlight the reaction to the deployment itself, right?
Exactly. That's a major thread. Multiple reports are really zeroing in on analysts questioning the legality of it all.
Using active duty military for domestic law enforcement.
Yeah, that specific point. It's a significant part of the narrative being reported out of the region.
Okay, now this is where our deep dive gets really interesting. How is China specifically covering this?
Well, Chinese state media, outlets like Xinhua, they're featuring the LA protests very prominently.
And their angle.
It's quite pointed. They're framing it often as, quote, proof of a broken America.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, they're leaning into this idea of a chaotic era in the U.S. They even use the term boomerang effect,
Boomerang effect. Meaning what exactly?
suggesting perhaps that U.S. actions or policies, maybe immigration, maybe even past criticisms of other countries, well, now they're causing domestic problems that are hitting back at the U.S.
And it seems they're really playing up the internal U.S. conflict, too, like federal versus state government over the troops.
Oh, absolutely. The reporting emphasizes that friction. You know, the White House versus California authorities on using federal troops on state soil.
And that's presented as dysfunction.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
As evidence of dysfunction within the U.S. system. It fits their broader narrative.
So that's the state media view. Are we seeing other reactions, maybe different perspectives from elsewhere in the region?
We are. One source mentioned some criticism coming from the Korean American community about how the LA events were being portrayed on social media.
Okay.
And more broadly, across some reports, there's this kind of notable focus on the perceived risk.
The risk of using soldiers against civilians.
Exactly. It's seen as a very high-stakes approach.
Now, beyond the LA reaction, these sources also cover other big developments in the region this week, things shaping the geopolitical landscape. What else stood out?
Well, the whole U.S.-China dynamic isn't just commentary on L.A. Those bilateral trade talks are still happening in London.
Right, day 2 now.
Yep. And the U.S. Commerce Secretary was quoted saying, you know, they're going okay, but might need more time.
And that connects directly to the economy, doesn't it? I saw something about the World Bank.
It really does. The World Bank just downgraded its global growth forecast. And importantly, sources note they specifically blamed ongoing trade wars as a key reason.
Underscores the real impact.
Definitely.
What about ongoing tensions? South China Sea.
Still a constant theme. Reports detail the challenges for Filipino forces and villagers operating near Beijing's presence.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also news about a Chinese Coast Guard ship running aground near Second Thomas Shoal.
That disputed area where the Philippines has a small garrison?
That's the one, a tense spot.
We also saw some interesting things, sort of internal security related, in Hong Kong and Taiwan.
We did. Hong Kong police warned about a mobile game app, actually accusing it of promoting armed revolution.
Seriously? A game app?
Yeah, urging people not to download it.
Yeah.
Shows the concern over online content. And in Taiwan, prosecutors indicted former ruling party members.
For spying for China, allegedly.
That's the charge. A significant move, highlighting those cross-strait security concerns.
And finally, South Korea. A big political change there.
Yes, the new president, Lee Jae-myung, is officially in office. Sources note he's already engaging with China,
Xi Jinping sent a message.
urging him to set relations on the right course, according to reports. And President Lee invited Xi to the upcoming APEC summit.
Okay, so pulling this all together from the sources, what's the main takeaway for you?
I think it really underscores how closely events inside the U.S., even domestic stuff like the L.A. protests, are watched and, frankly, interpreted across the Asia-Pacific.
And those interpretations, especially in state media, get woven into existing narratives.
Exactly, narratives about U.S. stability or, lack thereof.
Right. And all of this is happening at the same time as these major regional things, trade talks hitting global growth, those persistent sea disputes, leadership changes, security issues.
It just shows how interconnected everything is. What happens in LA gets used by media in Beijing almost instantly, while a grounded ship in the South China Sea or a new president in Seoul keep shifting the complex picture.
A constant interplay across continents.
Absolutely, events impacting everywhere all at once.